Hello, and welcome to the first in a series that's exploring how the four waves of climate action that has been integrated from the Drawdown Project's approach can be applied to business events. And today I have the pleasure of interviewing Paul Bailey from Discover Halifax. Through my work with Paul on various different projects, I really got the sense that Halifax was very much working on all four waves simultaneously and doing things that many destinations are only hoping to do. And so I want this to be an inspirational start to a series where we dig in to what's happening in places and what can we learn from them. So welcome, Paul. Thank you so much for joining us today. So first question for you, wave number one is all around quick wins for carbon reduction. What are some of the quick wins you are being able to help to reduce carbon when someone comes to Halifax as a visitor or a delegate for an event?
When it comes to carbon reduction, and we talk about the footprint more than anything else, or reducing your footprint when you come to Halifax for a convention, what I tend to do is I'll steer everyone to our sustainable business events guide. We wrote that with a lot of purpose around tying it back to the United Nations SDGs and really tying every aspect of a convention or conference through. So if you were a planner and you're open up on page two, page one's just a beautiful picture, so we'll go right to page two. You'll start to see, okay, here's what we can do from a food and beverage perspective. Here's what we can do from a transportation. Here's what we can do from a hosting, and then it goes on and on and on through the life cycle of a convention. I think that's really, really key. And the other part is Halifax 2050. Halifax is globally recognized award-winning strategy that the municipality of Halifax has put together, where we're looking at reducing our carbon emissions and footprint far below any globally recognized standard. I think when you combine those two things together, you're seeing an ability for planners and convention hosts to do a really meaningful job in reducing their overall footprint.
Question number two, wave number two. This is all around new infrastructure and renewable energy. When it comes to new infrastructure and low emitting systems and renewable energy, how would you say Halifax approaches this?
What's really interesting is Halifax is on the cusp of greatness when it comes to what's happening. If you look at a convention center, you'll see things like LEED certified. You'll see Rick Hansen certified. You'll see all these different things when it comes not only to carbon reduction and footprint mitigation, but also inclusiveness overall. But I think we have a really interesting project that's taking place in real time right now in Halifax, and this is the one that I'm most excited about. Um, it's called the Cogswell Interchange Program. So just to the north of where I'm sitting in my office, back in the 1960s and 70s, the powers that be decided they wanted to put a freeway through downtown Halifax. It was going to demolish most of the waterfront. Fortunately, the only thing that ever got built was a highway interchange in the middle of downtown, about 16 to 20 acres. The decision was finally made to get rid of it and scale things so that it was more human scale, but also more sustainable.
Mhm.
Some of this land that is being opened up will be used for development. Other parts will be used for parkland. But what's really interesting, and I encourage a lot of folks to do, is go on and search the Cogswell Interchange Program, because we're talking about a whole new way to manage things such as heating, electricity, cooling, integration of community and community space. So we have a real world working laboratory that is right now about 4 blocks that way from where I'm sitting. And
Wow.
it's something where people can see in real time how heating can take place through heat reclamation from sewage treatment, how we can cool by using pipes that go out under the harbor, how we can have proper distribution of electricity and everything else where it's managed and actually worked in a way that's meaningful. So I think for us right now, that new infrastructure is something that'll be something that people will talk about for a very, very long time.
Question 3 and wave 3. Natural carbon sinks. Can you tell us about growing natural carbon sinks and certain places that have that opportunity, particularly in Halifax, given your geographical location?
Yeah, we have the world's largest natural carbon sink, about 2 blocks that way. It's where the harbor and the ocean are. The simple fact is we are a very lucky province in terms of the size and scope of these natural sinks that exist. Halifax has significant forests in and around. We have significant natural parks, but we also have this ocean. And if we start looking at some of the programs that exist through the OAE and other groups like that, we're seeing a future where the ocean can play a greater role in terms of addressing and sequestering some of this carbon, but doing it in a way that makes sense so that we're not, turning the ocean into an acidic place where, frankly, the creatures and diversity that live in there can no longer live. Yeah, and I think to that end, the big thing is sometimes proximity to place. The simple fact is, people, like we talked about when we talked about oceans, it's something that's big, scary, and not a lot of people truly understand it. We all understand that you can go and surf on it and you can sail on it and things like that. But the true benefit of the ocean is still yet to be unlocked because we don't understand it.
Mhm.
So, if folks can come here and they can conference on something that's completely unrelated, they'll see the ocean, they'll see the harbor, they'll see some of these uh, living laboratory projects that are underway. And if nothing else, maybe it opens the door for them to think a little bit more broadly and do something in their own lives that makes a lot of sense.
And finally, Paul, we come on to wave 4, deploying new technology. When it comes to deploying new tech, and usually this is at the hardest and longest timeline of any project, an example could be a carbon-free cement, for example. How would you apply this to Halifax? What do you think is happening there on the long-term scale?
Absolutely. There's a lot of different projects underway that are probably bigger, more complicated than I could ever properly explain. But a good example of that would be Carbon Cure, which is a carbon sequestering cement product, which
Mm.
is created and made right here in Halifax. We obviously have the OAE, the Alkalinity Enhancement Project, that's underway here in Halifax that we've talked about a lot. But sometimes some of the more simple solutions are the best solutions. And one of the things that I love about Halifax is there's also a pragmatic approach to the day to day. We can start talking and having meaningful conversations about bike lanes and things like that, but we can also start talking about, getting folks moving more efficiently. And the fact that we have this harbor and this basin is certainly a part of that. Halifax has North America's oldest continually operating saltwater water ferry system, and it's run for hundreds of years. Here's people who don't have to be on the street, don't have to be in cars. They can go on a ferry back and forth between Dartmouth and Halifax. City Council announced about a year ago that there'll be an all-electric, brand new ferry route that'll run from Bedford in the Bedford Basin to downtown Halifax. It'll start in the next couple of years. Talking about electrification of mass transit, things like that that are all underway as a part of the Halifax 2050 plan. Um, so it's a really interesting place that we live, where Halifax has some really big moonshot type solutions, where we're talking about deploying new tech. We have ones in the middle. I don't want to downplay what Carbon Cure does because I think it's really cool. But here you are just finding a way to put carbon back into the concrete, and then you have just these really simple but complicated things, such as let's put electric buses on the road and electric ferries into the water. When
Mhm.
you start combining these three different levels of complexity, it's something that, frankly, I believe only Halifax is positioned well to do because of its people and because of the willingness and desire to do better, not only for ourselves, but those who live around us.
So we've had some brilliant examples from Paul today explaining exactly what the whole 4 waves of climate action is all around. I'm going to be continuing this series, interviewing other destinations who obviously all have a very different pattern to bring forward. But I'm hoping that these best practices and these examples can inspire others to do more. Thank you, and see you again soon.